We were told to go to school, get good grades, get a good education, right? I did that. At one point, I'm sitting at my job. I'm like, man, they lied to me. I'm like, this is supposed to be the American dream? Working 60, 70-hour work weeks. By the way, my wife is doing the same thing. And, every Sunday night I'm seeing this look on her face because as the sun begins to set, her face begins to drop. Because what?
Monday's getting closer.
Monday's getting closer, man. I got to go to work Monday morning.
Blind with the wickedness deep in your heart. Modern day wickedness is all you've been taught. Lie to your neighbors so you get ahead. Modern day trickery is all you've been fed. Motives and thoughts. Check your motives and thoughts.
Textbook analyzes the American dream from a German perspective. I wanted to read you a particularly powerful paragraph. One thing that it continually asks students to do is to analyze the persistence of the myth of the American dream, especially in light of the fact that, quote, that for many Americans there is no more chance of ever making it. The examples of eminent Americans from the past and the recent present help to explain the major function of the American dream. It is a national myth which connects the present to the past and which also contains a promise for the future. This myth is that it is within the scope of every individual to uplift himself or herself, to move up the social and economic ladder and partake in the endless opportunities. It's in quotes. The function of the American dream may then be summarized as follows. It establishes role models for the ordinary man or woman and thus upholds current social beliefs and structures. In other words, pretending like the American dream exists functions to keep things the way that they are.
This is wild, guys. So this here shows you the cost of living in 1938, which at this point is almost, 100 years ago. And you'll see how much things have truly gone up in price since 1938. Right now, obviously, it's 2024, if you guys didn't know that. So we can see a new house was $3,900 in 1938, guys. That's people's monthly income these days. Average income then was $1,731 per year. A new car was $860. Average rent was $27 per month. I mean, I just spent that on lunch earlier today, guys. We have tuition at Harvard, $420 per year, a movie ticket, 25 cents, gasoline, 10 cents per gallon, and a postage stamp, 3 cents. Unfreaking believable, guys.
I see them struggling, and before my generation comes at me, yes, I understand struggling is a part of life. We all struggled, but there's a difference between struggling and drowning.
She was talking about her kids, and part of the American dream, part of the promise of America has always been your kids can do better than you. But as she said, as Jessica said, drowning now means that so many kids have no hope, so many parents have no hope. And politicians on both sides of the aisle won't actually fix the problems. That's apparent. Consider this from the Financial Times. In 1985, an average American man working the typical full-time job could support a family of 4 on 40 weeks of income, 40 weeks, and be able to afford a range of nutritious foods, a 3-bedroom house, a comprehensive health insurance plan, a family car, and could save to put both kids through the state university. In 2022, paying for all that would require 62 weeks of his income, which, in the words of the Financial Times, is a problem, there being only 52 weeks in a year. The British dry sense of humor aside, there's a larger issue here. Those extra 10 or 12 weeks of income meant a chance to save, a chance to open a business, a chance to take a vacation. That was the definition of the American dream. That's what made America different than the rest of the world. As we said, the promise that your kids will do better than you. Suddenly, the sacrifice that so many Americans went through to become part of the American middle class becomes worth it. Once again, here's Jessica.
There used to be, upper class, middle class, lower class. It's literally turning into the ultra wealthy, and then everybody else is just poor.
As we've been saying for a year now, the ultra wealthy should take notice. This play does not end well for them. You can just ask the Russians or the French. Their revolutions, well, shall we say, did not end up so well for the affluent in either Russia or France. Difficult times. We could even go back to the history of ancient Rome, same result. Yet our leaders in Washington, again on both sides, refuse to even think about dealing with it. The causes of it are clear. The solutions are somewhat painful, but pretty obvious. But the politicians care way more about their own personal political future than all of us, including Jessica and, of course, her kids. When you were talking, I'm just wondering what was on your mind and whether this was partisan and political or whether this was just how you were feeling.
I think we've gone beyond political. Our nation is so politically charged they can't hear anything other than their own political party. So I wasn't speaking to politics. I was speaking to parents of children who we've kind of failed inadvertently by telling them if they did what we asked them to do, they would be more ahead than we were, which just is not happening anymore. And I made the video because of my frustration. My 25-year-old son, who is still living with me after graduating from college, saving every dime, just to find out that everything that he saved is way out of his budget. Houses and rental properties that were $600 right before the pandemic are now double and quadruple what they used to be. And that's not even it. He doesn't need lavish lifestyle. Even the small one-bedroom studios, if he can afford it, they're now asking 3 to 4 times the amount of rent you have to show to even get in such a place. When did that happen? We're not even talking about owning a home. That seems like an impossibility. Starter homes aren't even a thing anymore.
Yeah, well, in the words of George Will, you go broke slowly and then very quickly. And you point out over the pandemic, it was slowly happening, and now it's happened very, very quickly. Is there something about this? I know you're from Alabama. Is there something about this that's a rural versus urban divide, or a class divide versus, say, a racial one?
In my comments, if you read some of the comments, some will want to take it like that, but I want to look at it not by a class divide. I want to look at it as people. People in general are suffering everywhere. Every race is suffering. When you have children or even parents that are now looked down upon because we're considered enablers for keeping our children here past the age of 18, I don't consider it enabling if your child is actually actively trying to help their own future. You're not just giving them everything and expecting nothing in return. And me as a parent became a parent for life, not just for a short amount of time. If my kids are helping themselves, I am there to help support them. What worked for us in 1980s is not working in 2023, and the wages need to keep up with inflation. And we need to stop screaming with either a Republican or Democrat and scream, we the people need to see a change.
Yeah, I resonated with this because this is part of this discussion we're having. Here's the headline. A lack of credit history creates financial obstacles for immigrants. And as a first-generation American whose parents were immigrants, I resonated this because I went, oh my gosh, this is my parents' story. Here's what it says. What may seem like an immigrant cliche actually happens every day. Foreigners arrive in the U.S. with big dreams and a few dollar bills in their wallet. That was true for both of us reporting the story. And it goes on to say the U.S. economy counts on you to borrow money and stay into debt. And the epitome of all this is the credit score, which often snares newcomers into a financial catch-22, penalizing a lack of debt history and pushing many to take confusing, sometimes costly measures.
Ooh. Besides that, we need to support the U.S. economy because that's our first goal. My first goal is not to support the U.S. economy. My first goal is to make sure the Ramsey family is taken care of. The U.S. economy will have to deal with itself.
They'll figure it out. So that's what immigrants do.
It counts on you. It counts on you.
Welcome
to
to America.
And stay in debt.
You need a credit score to live here. That's pretty much what they tell you. And so how do you get a credit score, Dave? Well, you got to go into debt to get the score so you can go into more debt.
To get the score. So you can go into debt to get the score.
Oh, my gosh.
So the great American dream, when you add this method to it, turns into the great American nightmare for a lot of first-generation immigrants.
Oh, yeah. And they play this game because they were told they had to play the game. And then they realize, wait, where's the American dream? We're broke up to our eyeballs in car loans, credit cards, personal loans, student loans, medical debt, mortgages.
Now, your family was Middle Eastern.
Yes.
So we've done a lot of work in the Spanish community, people coming from various countries in the Latin world. And a lot of them don't have a trust of banks. And so they haven't fallen for this. If they're entry-level socioeconomic, okay? Now, if they come in higher brow.
They're heavier cash users.
Yeah, heavier, complete.
It's under the bed.
It's literally in a box under the bed. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's not a metaphor. It's a shoe box with $100 bills under the bed because they don't trust banks to not go broke because they came from a banana republic of some kind, that the banking system was not reliable. And so they don't fall for this because they're not going to go into debt. Now, what they do fall for is other things, title pawn and other crap, you know. But what happens is people like your mom and dad, they often get Americanized in the worst ways.
They adapt to the culture, and part of that is this toxic money culture that says you got to go into debt. And where does that lead us? Well, U.S. household debt now surpasses $17 trillion. Now, here's what's interesting, Dave. Comparing that to the European Union, which has more households and yet less than half of that amount in debt, which tells me that debt is the most aggressively marketed product in American history. And we are so good. America's number one in a lot of things, and debt is one of them. Marketing is one of them. And here's a great quote from a Stanford economic sociologist. Being financially responsible in the U.S. has come to mean borrow and repay. That pretty much sums up how you've been doing this for 30 years, Dave. Everyone was told, if you want to be financially responsible, borrow money and repay it back and do that over and over again until you die. And then maybe one day you'll hopefully be able to retire. Whew. It's insane. So I think it's time for a cultural shift here.
Well, you just want to say, hey, don't, you got here for the Statue of Liberty. Don't give up your liberty. Don't sign up for slavery.
Come here for freedom and you lose it.
Yeah, the first day, sign up for MasterCard. That's your first thing to do. Once you're looking for liberty, but you go get a Master first thing. Yeah, that's not our American distress. We can sign up for that. Or discovering bondage. Yeah, all for 2% back. Don't forget.
Buying a house doesn't mean the American dream anymore. That's getting them more debt. Becoming financially free is the American dream. Having opportunity. This is the land of all what?
Opportunity.
I never heard the land of all jobs. Right. What kind of dream is this? What country are we in? America. It's called the American dream. Ever heard the Brazilian dream? Never heard that one. Argentinian dream? Iranian dream? Spanish? It's American dream. People come to this country for opportunity. Right. And right now, the way the country's going, they're wasting it away. They're pissing it away because they feel entitled. I have a degree. Good for you. I get one in 6 months now. The value of a degree has gone down. The value of a master's.
And the money in college is going up.
I went to JU, Jacksonville University, right? Played soccer at JU. When I was going there, it was $25,000 a year. Now it's 40 plus. What?
It's a bad product. I feel like
accounting again hasn't changed. Science hasn't changed. What are you charging more for?
Right.
Well, inflation. That's a big freaking jump.
Right.